and I'm grateful to you for inviting me to read these poems, which I will stress are poems that I have made. And I want to talk just a little bit about this matter of making and the action of turning the unmade into the made. So I want to, before I read poems, to say a few sentences about the expressions, the poems I have made, and the expression my poems, to give you a thought about what's coming. To whatever extent it is possible to say and mean this assertion, I have made, I presume it must also be said whenever I say or you say, I have made or you have made, that all making begins with the unmade, like the idea of persons or the idea of love or community or art or religion or wood or stone or language, the materials that one stores in the workshops where making is done. In brief, what is made of the unmade. What is constructed by me is made of the unconstructed. And this unmade matter shows through the making and is the interest, the concern, and the only meaning of making. The saying a sentence, I have made, just puts the matter between us. As in a workshop where making is done, you would expect to find tools and also materials, for example, lumber or wood or metal, not made by you. As in any human world, persons and bodies and all kinds of order and also plans and tools, among them poetry, are not made by me or you, and, if you reflect upon it, are imperiled by making. Let us say, in any case, our stake is in the materials which were before the poem and will be after. The materials which are not made by you or by me and are, as I say, imperiled by making. Our stake is in the materials, is what I want to stress. I'm repeating myself. Our stake is in the materials, which were before the poem and will be after the poem. And they're the reason why making, poetry, poesis, whatever, they're the reason why making comes to mind at all. Traces of the unmade. That's what I'm calling the materials poems are made of and made for. Indeed, I would call any reading of poems traces, traces of the unmade. Do you understand? And I'm reminding you that the great unmade things are the only reason for the making of anything else. The great unmade things are, for example, names, which in these poems are the names of persons, all the more real because otherwise, except in these poems, unremembered, and the histories, so heartbreaking, and institutions, love and its doing, for example, kisses, which are a whole separate institution, not made by hands, and in the motor car to which Oren refers, in this case, the Chevrolet called the Grand Caprice. And there is also in the poem a town called Enigma, Minnesota. And in the town there is a town hall, of course. And in those days, abandoned locomotives in the fields of Wisconsin. That was 1942. And there are rooms, and I'll begin with one, and the room is another great institution. And all the rest, above all, consciousness itself, very like poetry itself. Consciousness, which is poetry's immediate matter, which nobody made. So, all of this will be done, and I, as it were, dedicate the poems not to you, and certainly not to me, by calling them the traces of the unmade world. Let us begin with a poem about receiving a vocation, that is to say, the sense that there was something to do, some reason for you to write, something that is required to be said. The room. A man is sitting in a room made quiet by him. Outside, the August wind is turning the leaves of his book. The door is open. Everything is disclosed. Each leaf, all the voices. The man is resting from the making of the quiet in which he sits. The floor is swept. His books are laid aside, open. His eyes are open. All the leaves and voices are outside in the restless wind. Soon he will rise, or take up a book, or someone will enter, or perhaps a leaf will come in across the threshold, or a voice will blunder through the room, blind and unanswerable on its way elsewhere. But now the room is quiet as the man has made it. Everything in its place is at rest inside the room, and the man is at rest, seeing each leaf and hearing all the voices. Now the ballad of the Bone Boat, which I think some of you will remember. I dreamed, I sailed alone in a long boat, a white bone, like a strong thought or a right name. The sail had no seam. The mast and its shadow on the sea fled like one high, lonely tree bent with the weight of the wind fruit sown by the cold storm. It was a dream of dignity when I steered on that plated sea with a seamless sail and a boat like a bone in a fair time of the moon. There was no rudder in the long bone boat. The compass was a stone. The air was empty of the deep sea gull, and gone was the cry of the loon. The sea and the sky was one dark thing. The eye and the hand as cold. Unbound was my hair. Unbound was my dress. Nothing beckoned or called but the words of a song that had death in its tune and death in its changes and close, a song that I sang in the eye of the moon, and a secret name that I chose. And this is the song. Straight is the way when the compass is a stone, and the sail has no seam, and the boat is a bone, and the mast is bent like a tree that bears the wind fruit of the moon. And now I sing Oh, come with me and be at last alone. For straight is the way in the dream of the boat that is a long white boat. How to do things with tears. Perhaps it is useful knowledge. How to do things with tears. In thy springs, O Zion, are the water wheels of my mind. The wheels beat the shining stream. Whack. Dying and then death, whack. Learning learned, whack. Breathing and breath, whack. Gone with the wind. I am old. The direction of time is plain, as the daylight, never without direction, rises in a direction from east to west and sets in a direction west to east, walking backward all night long underground. So this bright water is bent on its purpose to find the meadow path to the shore, and then the star called sleepless, by which the helmsman winds and turns. Zion of the mind, this is the way. Toward nightfall, the wind shifts offshore, north by northwest, closing the harbor to sail, and it stiffens, raising the metal water in the roads. The low sun darkens and freezes. The water shines. In the raking light is towed the great ship home, upwind, everything furled, and behind the great ship I am carried. Cast away in the body alone, under the gates of Erebus, the meeting place of daylight underground and night wind, shrieking in wires, the halyards knocking and raveled banners streaming to the southeast, like thought, drawn out, racked and torn, when the wind shifts and rises and the light fails in the long schoolroom of the setting sun. What is left to mind but remembrances of the world? The people of the world in tears sit down at the roadside and tell stories of the world. Then they rise in tears and go up. The mill sits in the springs. The water wheel whacks round. Alive, whack. Dying, whack. Dead, whack. Nothing. How then to do things with tears? Deliver us, Zion, from mist. Kill us in the light. In Chicago, it might be worthwhile saying that I am now offering a poem, and I'll offer several, about a small place not so far from Chicago in northern Minnesota called Gibbon. I believe the population when last looked into was 342. It was a farming town. I will refer to it elsewhere. And every now and then, on a schedule not understandable by me, not determinable by me, there was a day for washing clothes. And this is how clothes were washed on the farm near Gibbon in July, sunny day in July 1947. Soiled thoughts heap up like rags in a basket. Time to do a wash. The weather's right, bright and windy, a quick dry day. First, soap. In Gibbon, not store-bought, but stone-hard pig fat and lye, mixed with oatmeal in a pail. Then hacked with a knife into Lux-like flakes. Then the washer, gas-powered, hard to start in the kitchen, but too heavy to lug outside. Fumes. There's the word for it. The blue enameled kitchen stove burns corn cobs gnawed clean by pigs. After the pigs have done their damnedest, the cobs burn bright. Water, well water, is real cold. No stoves, pigs or not, is hot enough to bring well water to blood heat. For that, you need a heart. In the root cellar, beneath the kitchen, potatoes sprout dead white because there's no light. Outside, on wash day, are two galvanized steel tubs for rinsing in the lovely air. Rinse tub 1 is rainwater, sheer joy. Rinse tub 2 is the bluing, too cold to be true. Then everything dries on the line in the winds of July. What dries first? Handkerchiefs and ladies' underwear. What dries last? Farmers' overalls, heavy with desire. On the bib where the heart beats, his everlasting snuff tin has inscribed an unwashable, perfect circle forever. At noon, the naked truth descends, offering her stunning breasts. Also, here comes the prophet Amos with something in hand. In fact, a basket of summer fruit, which is chapter 8, verses 1 and 2. Check it out. And here is Oren's famous Grand Caprice. We were all in the car business in Minnesota. And Grand Caprice was a really substantial General Motors production. We felt very good about it. And it deserves a poem. I think this may be the Grand Caprice's only moment. But a truly generous one, I hope. In a Grand Caprice, cream, top of the line, with a real good ride, hands, feet, and air, a legacy, memorial of Lewis, maître de pensée of Minneapolis. I depart the cities where I was thrown, southward to a town fragile, worn thin as a bottom sheet, Enigma, Minnesota. What is this apparition? The weirdest structure unknown. Town Hall, Enigma, Minnesota. Locked. Upstairs, Messiah, the piano, fascinates ladies. Ground floor, the registry of true love kisses. Who's there? The ghost of a good man, dead. Who else? The ghost of a good woman, dead. She sings. My friend is he who at the same time is and is not. To him I am a friend who at the same time am and am not. I am a faithful friend to him, and he's a faithful friend to me. forever and a day. Hand in hand we walk, appearing and disappearing until the end. Then we sing Leadbelly's song, Good Night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. There's no world other than this common world. No pain, no joy other than this pain or joy. But let me look. I'll let you look. I myself, as a myth, stepped forth to marry you, yourself, as a truth. Do you, as a truth, take me as I am, a myth, to the end that out of our union will be born once more real children. And the old murder of everyone continue as before. The children waste and in death's arms die. The least part of a day is eternal life. In your arms, appearing and disappearing, I am completely happy. The world comes to mind. Dark, silver, quick. The world comes to mind. Dark, silver, quick. At the end, the dark end of the day, the blinded second is enough. In my dreams, will you answer one question? What's your question, my dear? Where have you gone? Country and town are empty of you. Post office, airport, telephone exchange, and all the high and hidden places are empty of you. And I have taken refuge in my dream of the incomprehensible town hall, Enigma, Minnesota. There's nothing here but snow. And the crows calling, what for? In vain, nothing. The Sioux are at the door of my dream, locked. Mayakovsky's ghost at the piano fascinates the ladies. Get it straight, sweethearts. Religions are systems of cruelty and also all social arrangements. Who's there? The ghost of a good man, dead. Who's there? The ghost of a good woman, dead. There's nothing here but snow. Take this kiss. Oh, my truth. Do not remember me. Remember instead the dark myth left empty at my death, staining the worn bottom sheet, fragile and thin. Open the registrar. Write down this kiss. The snow is filling the great plains of the dream. The rivers stop their flow. The paths are nowhere. Quick, come away with me. Irene, take a spin in the cream. Do not remember me. Remember instead my grand machine. Come away with me. Your left hand on my mythy knee. My right hand groping your truth. Pedal to the metal engine, hitting on 8. Windows down. Leather smelling good. Enigma fading fast. Bye-bye, town hall. Come away. Oh, beautiful youth. Our grand caprice, top of the line, drifts south. The way I got into the literary business was that my mother owned a lending library. Francis Ferguson says to me they were very common in those days, from which you rented books. In order to make sure that the ones that wanted sex got sex and the ones that didn't got the other kind of books, mother had to read books, and that's how she became literate. But the upshot was that she had only the second volume of most of the great novels of England, and not the first. Consequently, I know a lot about how things come out, but I don't know much about how they begin. But it's not entirely my fault. It's this is a poem about a lending library in Minneapolis. Christmas, 1943. At her lending library on Lake Street, Minneapolis, Mother Beatrice rented out books to ladies, but she read them first. That way she knew whether there was not, or better still was, anything disgraceful in any of the books. There were two kinds of ladies. The result was Mother owned the second and third volume of many novels, for example, Scott's Ivanhoe, but not the first, which was gratefully taken to heart by her customers. That's why, as I have just said, I know a lot about how things come out and don't know very much about how they begin. But Mother Beatrice, B for short, never read one of her books, and it was called Golden Mexico because it was, for some reason, not to be loaned or sold. Until Christmas 1943, when a voice out of the blue said, B, read that one. After she read it, Beatrice said, how things look in the heart of Jesus, I don't know, and frankly don't want to know. But I do know that only those Jews who are stirred by the question of their own existence can answer the claim he makes. Alan, my dear, who does know? To whose sense can we say, yes, that's true? And add to the wonder of it, belief. Beatrice, I asked her, what do you really want to know? Alan, she said, what was the first book you ever read? Beatrice, before I learned to read, I couldn't read. But I did know about reading. And it never happened, thanks to you for good or ill, that there wasn't any book, but I could not read in the heart of Jesus. So the first book I read was Golden Mexico. Now I read because light does not reveal itself, not even on a bright wash day. But it lies hidden in a cloud until summoned, like the heart. It was the golden cover of that book named Golden Mexico that drew me in at first. Then I added what I could add to that wonder. No book I read was ever written until I added that. Outside the lending library, Christmas 1943, a voice, maddening, relentless, phonographic, began to sing Silent Night and did not stop at heavenly peace, but start over again and again and again. It was the Lady's Triumph, a real bestseller, a virgin birth, the babe who added to the wonder of it all belief. 3 days of that drove B crazy. Beatrice stood up, gathered her books, locked the door of her lending library. She said, let them by. And her voice was heard, despite the singing. Across the Gentile lake by itinerant Thoreau, where he rested on the far shore, high up on the cliff, on a rock, and that's where Thoreau caught the cold that killed him. There's no lending library on Lake Street, Minneapolis anymore. How then ever know the way things begin? Remembering as we do nothing. None of our books will tell, certainly not this one. But take the question to heart nonetheless, because I write the wonder of it all And by this poem called Lending Library, Solicit Belief. There was a road by which we came this way. There is another by which we shall depart. Incidentally, Thoreau did catch cold in Minneapolis on that hill and died of the same cold shortly after his return to New England. So now you know how that happened and even why. In the old Midrashic texts, in the course of Talmudic instruction, needless to say, the students get very bored. And so they experiment with asking there's plenty of record of this. They experiment with asking the teacher, the rabbi, idiotic questions. And I've written a long set of poems, of which I will read only one, which represent my understanding of how the rabbi would answer such questions. One of the questions that occurs in the literature is that the yeshiva bochers, the students always asked the rabbi, how does it happen that you live so long? That was a question that they really liked, and there's a lot of answers to that in the literature. Here is one of them. The poem is called My Radiant Eye. Or is it on account of my radiant eye I have lived so long? I never slept in the study hall or called anyone by an improper name. I never urinated in a desolate synagogue. I never ate or drank in a desolate synagogue or picked my teeth. I did not walk into a desolate synagogue in the summer just because of the heat, nor in winter just because of cold rain. Also, no one may not deliver a eulogy for an individual inside a desolate synagogue, but you can read scripture inside a desolate synagogue. Or you can teach in a desolate synagogue, or deliver eulogies for the community. When synagogues are deserted, they are to be left alone and weeds allowed to grow. One should not pick the weeds, lest there be anguish that the synagogue is in ruins. Marvelous Jewish argument. When are the synagogues to be swept and cleaned so that weeds do not grow inside them? Answer, when they are in use. When synagogues are in ruins, weeds are not to be picked there. Because I know these things, I was approved, although unworthy, after a 3-day oral examination by the king of Sicily, to whom by custom the powers of approval are entrusted. Thereafter I have worn the laurel crown, my eye radiant to this day. In the end, write on my gravestone, Oblivion, and the name of the poet who said that. Among the persons to I referred to in my introduction, that is that class of persons whose names really have no other memorial than the poem that one makes. And you must note that is a very, very important function of writing, memorialization. And one should give attention to poems that have no other, to names that have no other memorial than the poem in which you have cited it. There's a poem called Enough Rain for Agnes Wahlquist. It happened at midnight. What I possessed and lost, or what I never possessed and have nonetheless lost, or what in any case I was not born possessing, but received from another's mouth, a smooth stone passed in a kiss from the mouth of a fate into my open mouth, amidst odors of metal and slamming doors at the dark end of a railway car as the train was leaning on a curve and slowing to stop, is lost. Lost in that dark delectissima. The fate showed me two ways, male and female, also a third, Gessert's midnight path to the wild iris, an escaped garden among thickets of poison oak, where rolls the stony Oregon and hears no sound except stone on stone. What then shall I give you? My kiss stone is lost. But look, the vast world. The vast world, energetic and empty, glows in the dark. On the strip between the road, gravel or macadam, or an earthen path, but in this case it's gravel, and the settlement on the far side hill, field or forest or other tangled right-of-way for Jews, gypsies, ghosts, outcasts in any case. There, among weeds, springs up the wild iris, Iris tenax, violet or blue or pale yellow, the bloom 3 to 5 inches across. How in the world did they come here? If you must take these iris, use a shovel, root them in your garden and let them go to seed. Gather the seed in fall, October or November. Drive out into the countryside, plant the seeds on any half-sunny, slightly eroded roadside bank. Sow iris delectissima, violet or ghostly yellow, in the wild, universal garden named shadowy Agnes Wallquist, her midnight body from which wild iris and lilies grow. To whom better entrust pure loss? To what breasts other than the breasts of Agnes Wallquist? Agnes, can you hear? When a man dies or a woman dies, the whole world of which he is the only subject dies without residue. Or the whole world of which she is the only subject dies without residue. Did I ever live? Never. Never. The world of each person, man or woman, is a dependency of the world of another one. When a man dies, or a woman, the reason for confidence with respect to any world is diminished. Weep, weep. When the last person but one dies, the last person, though he continue to live, ceases to exist. Agnes Wallquist sighs. Then she says, yeah. In my sleep I say, Agnes, I will give you rain from my mystery store of rain. The dead have buried the dead and are forever burying the dead, but the dead do not remember as the living do not know the heart. I wake in the hour before dawn to the huge hammer of the rain, hammer of sex as the poet makes it, which thunders, enough, enough, enough. Earth shudders and springs, the east grows bright, and Agnes Wallquist whispers. Thank you. Sweet youth, delectissima, mea, go, punish your pillow. Your kiss stone is among the stones. The stony Oregon rolls and hears no sound. No sound but stone on stone. Blonde fate, the honey blonde, no longer knows which one is the stone of witness. What follows is the wearing out to dust. The watermill deep down in ocean grinds out salt. Truth, troth, death, but sweeter than the body of a man or a woman. Sweetness of that sweetness. Song of all those songs is the midnight garden of Agnes Walquist. Her breasts are sweet. The huge hammer is an ancient memory of water falling into water. There is lightning all night on distant mountains. Strike after strike, violet, blue, red, ghostly yellow, indigo. And along the mountain paths, asleep or dead, are sprawled nocturnal mountaineers. There's a poem called Jerusalem. One can hardly say anything about Jerusalem that does not excite anger in an audience. Jerusalem is a grave. Name two who are buried there. These are poets, Hebrew language poets who I came to know. Dennis Silk, who is first mentioned, was an Englishman. His reason for going to Jerusalem was to get away from British women, which you have to admit has a certain singularity among motives for what is called making Aliyah. The other poet mentioned here is Amichai, about whom many of you may know. He and Dennis got on very well. His reasons for going to Jerusalem were somewhat different, but perhaps less rational. Jerusalem, I started again. Jerusalem is a grave. Name two who are buried there. The poet Dennis Silk is buried there. He lived with a dressmaker's dummy in a cave on the hill called the Hill of Bad Counsel, due south of Zion Mount. She bore him children after her kind. In any case, whatever she gave birth to did not live. Amichai, also a poet, is buried there. From his apartment, you could see a gate of the city called David's Gate. In 1948, on the beach at Tel Aviv, Amichai held a dying soldier in his arms. The soldier whispered, "Shelley." And then he died. The poet built Jerusalem. Therefore, poets have a duty to destroy Jerusalem. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, the world will be better off. The tree a cat can get up into, a cat can get down from by himself. Now we come close to the end, and now we come close also to poems that I'm now writing so that the person who's standing before you fits a little better. The text. The poem is called Ship Fitter, Ship Fitters. I don't know whether the heroic basketball team called the Celtics is remembered any longer. And you remember maybe George Mikan, right, who was the great hero. The poem makes reference to the guy who hired George Mikan and his reasons for doing that. He was not a basketball fan. Ship fitters. It's a matter of concern to me that Leonardo's angels are so beautiful and so inadequately provided with wings by the curious master. Surely Leonardo knew they couldn't arrive here to pray or point or weep or at the end save themselves from fire by the means depicted. It's also a matter of concern to me that Midge Berger, wife of Ben Berger, who owned the Minneapolis Lakers, played a good game of golf, despite a tick over her left eye, which raised her handicap. And that Ben, a short man, liked to be photographed next to George Mikan, 7'2", whom he hired for the purpose. Midge was best friend of Beatrice, my mother. Both girls are dead now. But it's still a matter of concern to me that Ben and Midge went to China in 1951, and that Midge carried back in her lap 28 hours Pan Am, a model riverboat, a junk, as a present for Beatrice, Empress of Minneapolis and its streams. The boat was made by learned felons in Nanking prison on the Yangtze, all dead. But in their time, they knew how to make a boat. They would have been loftsmen, welders, riveters, anglesmiths, flange turners, and the like. Look how the hull, the spars, the sails, etc., are clearly right. They were competent men. They knew how boats work. I said to myself, that will be my death ship when it comes time. And now, wind rises, the tide is at flood. The great green sails set downstream toward the harbor busy with trade. The wind shifts offshore. Friends, be thou assured. I will read the poem to which Orrin referred, the poem called Flora's ABC. The poem is built upon two separate situations. It derives in part from watching a lot of the film that is now available, that is to say, the testimony of concentration camp survivors. But it also refers, and as a discourse is situated, in an open field, late August, near my home. It's the time of the Perseid meteors, right? Everyone knows or sees sometime the Perseid meteors, and they're very visible from that field. So here are 6 Perseid sonnets, meteors of late August. At that time, I learned to be a coal miner. We were 20 girls to begin with. One day, a butcher's daughter from Luxembourg whispered, "I'm afraid, Flora, something's going to happen. The SS are saying, what your father did to me, we're going to do to you. Stay away from me, Flora." She was. A day and a half dying. We stood, compelled to look. God gives and God takes. Afterward, we went back to the mines. Underground, I learned to speak the language of the dead, A, B, C. The dead were speaking the language of the dead to stones. Among the dead was a clean beast who addressed me with a certain authority. This time of year, the Perseids return, prodigal sons of God who have wandered away. Lying in the field among august things, we see that it is so. This is that time. The Perseids go down. They do. Southwest, northeast, flame out and disappear. The Perseids are coming to be and passing away. Why are you weeping, Flora? I weep on account of the beauty that is going to rot in earth. On that account, she said, surely you have reason to weep. We both wept. Then she turned toward me, and I recognized the voice, and I, living or dead, she whispered, do not be content with an imaginary God. August already. August everywhere. The Perseids are coming to be all night, passing away. In ever weeping Baltimore, we do not sleep, but go forth on the western mountains with timbrels singing miraculously. 19 sisters still. We were 20, but one rots in earth. This is the material Sabbath, our reprieve. But winter is at the door. Winters, we resume our work among the stones, dragging coal through tunnels to the port. Also, we milk the soul cows and sell the cream. Our God is the real McCoy. Say it in dead, philosopher, is Adonai. I love the field, and others of my generation love the field. How it rises gently toward its center for good drainage. How mowing it does not prevent encroachment of young trees that will soon make a small forest, darkening earth, so that the lady's bedstraw and the blackberry, the milkweed and clover cannot live. How the path the children make on their 6-day journey into the world has disappeared because they are now grown up. How the grass is lodged where the beasts sleep. Here patience does its perfect work. A field. This is Flora's ABC. Material Sabbath. A clearing in space. Open to the stars. How admirable that the body bears the soul. How admirable the soul does live and looks about. Therefore weep that the body must wander, tormented by strangers, by death disgraced. Just so the ark of the Lord, harnessed to milk cows by the Philistine police, was dragged, oh, radiant waste too hot to handle, until it foundered in the low, wet pasture where all roads run in. 1 Samuel 6. A wheel, cracked, then shattered, unbalanced by the giddy weight of nothing inside, the ark was wrecked. The soul cows mired at the bottom of the field, and down among the mice and emeralds, ens realissimum, in the shit lies dead. Then the butcher's daughter from Luxembourg spoke again in her own language. What do I know? A plow rusts in the field. The field is the common world. How admirable. To that place all roads run in, the mice and emeralds, the nothing. There lies the ens realissimum in earth, and eating rust feeds on the mists Beware the sex of young men without education. Such sex desires the death of women, Flora. Do not be content to say, Yahweh, Lord. Say rather, her father was butcher in Luxembourg. Do not be content to say, ladies, bed straw. Say, her virginity. Do not say, creator spiritus veni. Say, windflower, or maybe anemone. To conclude, two short pieces. How the immense cathedral fell. How did it fall? It was so empty, so silent, everything fell. At first the falling bricks from somewhere dark, high up, out of sight, one, and then several, not many at once, but nothing struck the ground. Then many, then all, then nothing, then the same materials appeared again as another immense cathedral. Empty, silent, made of the same bricks, but this time also many dark limbs came down, as if the horror of materials, the waste, the fatal repudiation, negligent endangerment was of bodies. At first slow, out of the darkness, then inevitable, utter ruin. Solomon, what was your trade? I woke paralyzed by the terror of the utter loss, unable to move, alive but stricken, ignorant. So that's how the immense cathedral fell. It was so empty, so silent. Everything fell. But now the light increases. The dead bury the dead. And here at the end, a poem called A Day's Work. Buying a grave, choosing a mother, August again, mourning, wisdom, dreams. I am choosing a mother in the future, before this time, and in the afternoon buying a grave. There she is, pre-war. Bobbed hair conceals ears. Starched white shirt, sleeves rolled up with fierce intent, hands in pockets of a straight skirt of heavy material. She is looking at the ground. This happened once, long ago. As for the rest, burn me and make my grave in the stream and the stream bed of a fiery brook. Thank you very much.